Today, I'm excited to be joined by Carmine Gallo, communications coach, Harvard instructor, and best-selling author with Gallo Communications Group. Hey, Carmine, how are you?
Hi, Eric. Thanks so much for inviting me. It's a perfect audience for this topic. I love it. Thanks.
I'm excited to have you, and I will not. I gotta be honest. I'm also very intimidated. Often I don't normally have an expert in communication on the other side of this communications.
Hey, interesting way of looking at it. And what I have learned, especially over the last few years, I've been doing this for like 2 decades, but over the last 2 years, I've learned more than I've learned in the previous, 18 years. So there's always something new to learn.
Even the experts can learn, and that's a good lesson for everybody, right? We're all probably very good at some things, and we're all probably not great at some things, and if we put the time in to be better, we will be better. That's
Right.
that's really all it comes down to. So, appreciating you sharing that thought, though. Before we kick off into the meat of the episode, I always like to start with the session on good news and gratitude.
Okay.
And so I will ask you any professional, personal good news or gratitude you'd like to share with me in the audience?
Gratitude, you have 2 hours. We could go through everything I'm grateful for. I think about this a lot. Of course, I'm very thankful and grateful for my wife, Vanessa Gallo, because she has helped really develop our courses. She's taken a lot of the books that I've written and then turned them into workshops, and she co-teaches with me at Harvard, and she co-runs our business. So it's, those are the things that they're close to you, but I shouldn't forget them because they're so important to me. And of course, she's been able to help me raise a wonderful family. More credit to her. But on a non-personal or not people note, but just in general, I was thinking about this actually this morning. So I don't know if it's gratitude. I guess it is. Uh, isn't this cool that we are really in the golden age of communication? Anybody has at their fingertips the ability to learn new things through TED Talks, through podcasts, listening to a podcast, reading books, listening to audiobooks. My goodness, 100 years ago, this would have been like witchcraft,
Yeah.
especially what we're doing now, talking to each other. So I think there's always something to be grateful for, and it's a good habit to get into.
No, I love it. And I will share, and I don't normally like prepare gratitude coming into an episode, but I always have one because it sounds like you, I'm grateful for many things in my life, and I feel very fortunate and blessed at all times. But I actually just before we started filming, I got an episode. I have a foundation that we run, and we had honored an organization called Contractors for Kids
Hmm.
last September at our last event. And, at that time, she had written to me about, hey, you don't know how much this donation, how many more families we're going to be able to support because of the donation from the organization. And just so happens that today I got an email from her about now that they've actually supported those families, and, they helped a family avoid eviction, and just these amazing,
Yeah.
real life things, fortunately or hopefully, things that you and I may not have to worry about, right? But that real families do at times, and just the ability to help them. And so I responded to her, and I just told her, I was like, I'm feeling so many emotions at that time, right? Like you're feeling happy that I could do something to help, proud that, we were able to help. Sad in some ways that maybe those families had to go through that, right?
Hmm. Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
empathetic in that way.
Yeah, send me an email offline later. I'd like to learn more about this organization.
Oh yeah,
Actually, sounds cool.
I will certainly do that. Yeah, yeah. We
Yeah.
were, but what I said to her was the thing I'm feeling most is gratitude for her and her team. And money is great, but money is a tool, and that's what we gave them, right? We were able to donate money, and that was fantastic. But I had gratitude for her and her team for actually executing something and adding value to that. To the dollars we gave them. So
Yeah.
it's just that's my gratitude is to Contractors for Kids and their organization and all they do for the families they support.
Can I pick up on this theme and
Sure.
let's dive into some tips that I think will help our listeners right away? Because I know your audience very well. We can talk about it later, but I teach within a Harvard program for advanced real estate developers. So I understand architects, engineering, construction. Uh, over the last few years, I've developed this new audio program, which we can talk about later, but it's called Viral Voices. It's a limited series audio original on one topic. That's why they call it an audio original. 10 episodes on persuasion and communication. Getting back to this whole idea of gratitude, I have been speaking to more neuroscientists and cognitive psychologists than I have ever in my career in the last couple of years. And to a person, they tell you that you only have a limited amount of energy and creativity in this little 3-pound brain of ours. And it consumes an inordinate amount of energy given its size. That means that if you want to be successful and you want to be your creative best during the day, you need to conserve that energy, and you need to be deliberate at conserving that energy. And guess what, folks? Eric, you know this. The algorithms are great at sucking up your energy and the screen time, and the what they call doom scrolling, okay? Raises your fear, it raises cortisol. All of those energy sucking neurochemical reactions. In other words, be protective of your energy and creativity. Best way, start the day with gratitude, end the day with gratitude. Stop the doom scrolling. That's what I've been told. Just sharing that with you.
I actually similar sentiment, but I forget which book it was. And I do a lot of audiobooks. I love that. So I'm excited to talk about the viral voices. I definitely want to get back to that. But one of the books I read recently, and I can't remember, but it talks all about that gratitude feeds the soul, right? Like it's your energy boost when you're feeling stressed or you have problems, right? It's a way to really like give yourself that to re-energize yourself, right? You talked about energy in a big way. So
I've read those things too, but I used to dismiss them because I thought they would, I thought that they were just sort of new age fluff. No, it's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
We were, and I'll do this briefly, but then I do want to jump to your background. But before the show, you and I were kind of talking about like meditation in some way, right? Just calming your mind and keeping yourself, because there's so many distractions in this world today, right? You hit on a bunch of them between social media and other streams and your emails and your text messages. And, at one point it was like, oh, I have texting. Now I have texting, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and 6 other text mediums, right? That like still are text messages that I have to monitor. Even with your phone, you have probably your phone number. You might have a work phone. You might have a third line, for your direct business line, your direct cell phone line, your other cell phone line. It's just a lot of distractions out there. But to be able to stay calm, give some gratitude, and try to reclaim some of that energy is really important. So now you've heard it from the expert audience. The gratitude good news session works. You should do it. So Carmine, you gave us a little bit about your background, right? That you teach at Harvard. You obviously were in a number of books, and we're going to get into a couple of them. But can you, like, in a couple of minutes, give me your background? How did you get to where you are today? And anything else you'd want to share the audience should know before we jump into some of the questions, just so they have a baseline on who you are?
Everything I write about, everything I study is through the lens of communication. And as looking back, I was obsessed with public speaking and communication as far back as high school, where I would read biographies of great speakers like Winston Churchill in high school for fun, not part of a class. When I got into college, I found a publication called Vital Speeches of the Day. Okay, this was an old publication where they actually had, like, every month it would come out and they would have speeches, real speeches, not just by politicians though, but by business leaders. I thought that was fascinating. I had to look for them in the law library. That's where I found a stack of these vital speeches of the day. So I had always been fascinated by how words can inspire people. How is it that you can listen to an inspiring speaker and get goosebumps on your skin? how does that work? What's going on? And I'm still learning. I'm still learning. But this whole idea of persuasion and public speaking has always fascinated me. I spent the first 15 years of my career in journalism. So I was a broadcast journalist. That wasn't terribly fulfilling. And so I quickly, well, not quickly, after 15 years, then I began to transition out of it. And I realized what was much more gratifying for me was working with business leaders to help them communicate their ideas more effectively. I actually started working with some pre-IPO companies. And I realized that these folks have great ideas, but they can't necessarily articulate those ideas very well. And so over the years, I realized you can have the greatest idea in the world, new, novel, innovative, groundbreaking. But if you cannot persuade other people to take action on those ideas, you won't be nearly as successful as you could be. So I started writing. I'm a journalist, so I did enjoy learning things, writing books on those topics, doing the audiobooks for them as well. And it's kind of snowballed from there. So now I work with executives at at companies that touch your life every day.
Wow.
I looked it up the other day, and I've touched executives at 7 of the 10 top 10 Fortune 500 companies.
Wow.
And so it's fun. It's fun, especially for a guy like me who has ADHD. I get bored really easily, Eric. I get bored. So I think it's good for me because every week or every project is something different. And it's a lot of homework. I have to learn a lot about an industry before I can help someone and coach them.
That's incredible, and, you hit on so the reason I picked up, uh, the, Talk Like TED book was for that very reason. The and, like, I'm doing it right now, right? The importance of conveying your ideas in an articulate way to inspire others is so critical to being a good leader, and you just said it, right? You could have the greatest idea in the world with the best execution ever, but if you can't talk to people about why that matters, it doesn't matter to them, it's human nature, right? We're social beings, and I think that you want to be inspired by the people leading you or the people that you're talking to or working with.
Especially now in the age of AI, and we can talk about that too whenever you want to jump into that.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the first questions I have for you. So, writing was such a personal thing, and I can't tell you the number of people and number of emails I get today where, like, they don't even try to mask that it's AI. I'm like, I can see that ChatGPT wrote this for you, right?
Yeah,
And not that that's a
interesting.
bad thing because tools are meant to be used,
Yeah.
but you're losing your voice in that. And so just tell us about, like, what are you seeing the interaction between AI and communication and the written word, the spoken word? Like, how are you finding what are you seeing as impacts?
It's fascinating because in the age of AI, the soft skills are no longer soft. The hard data proves that soft skills, especially in the area of creativity, collaboration, communication, persuasion, those are the skills that are going to set you apart. That's not just my opinion. Okay, I have opinions on everything, but I like to reinforce them through experts and data. So I have spoken over the last couple of years, especially over the last, let's say, 6 months, to top neuroscientists, people who have worked in the AI field, as well as just recently a former executive for ChatGPT. He was at OpenAI and helped launch ChatGPT. And he actually, his name is Jack Cass, came out with a wonderful new book called The Next Renaissance. And he opened my eyes. Because he gave me the history of new technologies. We went into the psychology of why people fear new technology, why they think it's a replacement for humans when it's really not. Okay, that's a whole other area.
Yep.
But he opened my eyes and really focused on what's going to set people apart, the human skills. He called them the human skills. One is the ability to learn new things, which is going to be very critical for everybody listening today. Okay, you have to think differently. Okay. If you think you know it all, you're going to be left behind pretty quickly.
Yep.
So now you have to be what Satya Nadella at Microsoft once called a learn it all and not a know it all.
Mhm.
Okay. Especially today because things are so quickly changing. So Zach told me, again, the former ChatGPT executive said, you got to be able to learn. You have to have an optimistic mindset, which means embrace it. Don't fear it. It's here. Okay? It ain't going anywhere. So you either look at it as an opportunity or a problem. And I think most of the people listening to this call or listening to this are problem solvers. They're architects, they're engineers, they're problem solvers.
Yep.
So stop the doom scrolling, especially when it comes to AI. It's here. Now you can use it as a tool. But as Zach told me, and other neuroscientists have told me, AI does not have imagination. I know you might think so because it looks like it does,
Because it has
but
ideas sometimes. Yeah.
it's not creative. Okay. It's not creative. It can't take two or three disparate things and create something entirely new. As one person told me, you'll love this, Eric. You know, Hamilton, the great Broadway
Yeah.
musical by Lin-Manuel Miranda. You think AI now or any time in the future would have been able to create that? No, because it doesn't have imagination. It can't like look at a historical event and then marry it with hip hop and say, this is a thing.
It's
Let's
gonna work.
try
Yeah.
it. So it doesn't have imagination. It also doesn't have goals and aspirations. That's why this whole area of topic of discussion that you hear in the news all the time is it going to take over the world? Sure, bad actors are going to use it for bad things, just like every other technology has been used, including the printing press. But that's different from it. It doesn't have an aspiration to be anything more than it is, which is a bot. Okay, a famous neuroscientist told me this. So without aspiration, it doesn't have imagination. It doesn't have a lived experience. The point is, like you said, Eric, long way of saying it, use AI as a tool. It is terrific. Research, synthesize, aggregate, tighten. I use Grammarly and other tools
Yep.
to tighten my writing, to get it from 1,000 words to 700 words for an article. Great, terrific. But don't think it replaces your authentic voice. And now, more than ever, we have a sharp radar. Just like you said, you can see an email. You
Yeah.
can tell it's chat. Okay. This is another area of research that people are looking at. Did you know, as human beings, we can tell, we have this incredibly sharp radar that's evolved over hundreds of thousands of years. We can tell when something is not right. So we can kind of tell when something's AI and something's authentic. So now more than ever, don't lose that authentic story. Tell the story first, write it first, come up with the structure of a presentation first, then let it assist you or use it for background research. Um, or use it to expedite things so you can create slides faster. Absolutely fine, perfect. But like I've always said, even before AI, slides, especially PowerPoint slides, complement the story, but the story comes first.
Yep.
That's why most presentations are quite boring and tedious and dense and convoluted and confusing. Most people are not on this call are not going to say, "Oh, I want to see another PowerPoint presentation." They're poorly done, and they're poorly done, in my experience over 20 years, of because people don't create the story first. They create the slides. Well, the slides can't tell the story. Create a structure. Think of yourself as a screenplay writer. Think of yourself as a movie director. They don't pick up the technology. They don't pick up the camera. They storyboard. They sketch. They think about what are the elements of the story and then just use PowerPoint to complement the story, but not to tell the story. You're the storyteller. It's the same with AI. I think you can apply that to almost any technology.
Yeah. I love it as a tool, right? I use it all throughout my day. But in the end, that's what it is. It's a tool to help me. But I really I fear that losing my own voice, right? Like I like the way I think or present topics. And it's great at all the things you said. It tightens it up for me, or it might give me a first draft, right? When I'm stuck writing, it can give me 10 ideas to think through and like
Mhm.
articulate a little bit better. But the like, let me just copy and paste this in its entirety. I think you're losing who you are a little bit if you're doing that, if that's how you're using it.
Look, the people who are listening to this podcast are the ones who need to stand out. Okay. You can't look and sound like everybody else.
Yep.
Let me give you a little insight from somebody. I won't mention his name just in case. He is a psychology professor at a major university that in the States everybody would recognize. And we were talking about AI, and he is now part of the administration that recruits new students and looks at their applications. And he said, Carmine, in the last year or two, you wouldn't believe
Wow.
how many essays that students are writing using chat and just
Yep.
copying and pasting. And then he said, Carmine, here's the problem. You're pretty much eliminated immediately, not because we can always scan and identify what's AI, but because you sound the same. You all sound the same. AI does not have imagination, Eric. Okay. It doesn't have your lived experience. That's the point. And for all of us, everybody listening, and me and Eric included, the point is to be distinct. Yeah. To rise above the crowd. So be careful with AI. It's a tool, but you're the storyteller.
I love that though, that way of putting it. And so you were touching a little bit on like setting ourselves apart, right? So what are some communication gaps you see in individuals like trying to grow in their careers or progressing in their careers? It sounds like you speak with a lot of executives. What's do you have like a advice
Oh,
for us, right? Or what do
yeah,
you think is the
yeah,
gap?
sure. Absolutely. There's so many pieces of advice. So let's give people something practical.
Sure.
Uh, I'm going to give Vanessa, my wife, credit for this. She's come up with a model that we've actually introduced in our Harvard classes, which are executive education and people in the built environment. So they're advanced executives, and they still get something out of this model. So we call it AMP, AMP. Think of it as amplifying your voice. AMP, AMP. They stand for three variables. There are three variables that you can manipulate to become a better communicator, presenter, speaker. Ability, message, practice. Ability, message, practice. Vanessa is much more eloquent at describing it than I am, but ability are those variables that don't change very much. Okay. So those are constant variables. They can change over a lifetime if you put some time into it, but mostly you come to the table with those. Some people are blessed with a deep, resonant, incredible voice, right? Some people have great posture when they walk into a room. They've got good executive presence, maybe because Vanessa has a psychology degree. She's great at this. She'll identify, oh, were you a dancer? Were you in the military? Do you have sports in your background? She could tell by the way you carry yourself. So some people have a different presence. You can work on that, but what we do is we look at strengths. And that's how Vanessa has kind of changed the way I look at communication. She looks at a speaker and says, what are their strengths? What are their abilities that they bring to the table? Because we're going to double down on those. We're going to amplify those. But there's two variables that are not constant that now you can manipulate: message and practice. So you can't always change your natural abilities overnight, but you can change your message. And that's why most of this conversation is going to be about the message, the story, the stories you tell, the words you use, how you structure a presentation, uh, how you keep it tight and clear, concise and interesting. 80% of your time should be focused on your message and your story. Then P is for practice. Most people don't practice. And so when they have to give a Zoom meeting or they have to give a presentation, they're thrown. Okay. Some people have extreme anxiety. Some people are just off because they haven't done it. I just heard a podcast with Emma Greed. She's a famous entrepreneur, getting a lot of attention these days. She co-founded Skims and Great American, with the
Oh,
Kardashian
wow.
family.
Yeah.
So she, British-born entrepreneur, and she was on a podcast, and she said before her first pitch, when she started her own fashion brand, she practiced in front of a mirror 50 times. And the podcast host was surprised. Didn't surprise me. A good communicator will do that. Not just practice in front of a mirror. How about get some feedback? Practice in front of people. Neuroscientists have taught me this, that the best way to alleviate the anxiety and to build your confidence is to speak in front of people, to add a little stress to your presentation. So any of you who are listening to this podcast, if you've got a mission critical pitch, uh, say it out loud, not just to yourself, but to somebody else. Stress test it. What do they like about the message? What could be made tighter? What could be made more clear? So you have some natural ability, focus on those, build on those, because they're going to be a differentiator for you. But then you can really work on your message and practice. And depending on how much you practice, how much you put into the message, anyone can become an extraordinary speaker.
I love the acronym. And in our, like, for our industry in the engineering, construction, architecture, real estate, right? Presenting proposals is a big part of it, right? How you win work. And that may be true in most other industries too. And I think that practice piece you hit on is one that is probably often missed because we are also compressed for time between delivering the work we've already won and now trying to go ahead and deliver a new proposal to a new, a new presentation to a new client or a different client or potential or an existing client just for new work. And making the time to practice it. And I have found that, like, personally, if I can do that, and I tend to do it more in front of a mirror, but I like the idea of bringing an audience in, that it does help me deliver the speech better, right? Because I just feel more comfortable. I know what my facial expression looks like. I know what my hand gestures look like. I know,
Mhm.
that I'm standing upright. I'm conscious of all these things during all that practice until it becomes innate, right? It's just part of how I'm delivering that speech.
During my coaching sessions and my classes, part of the program over at Harvard, and I'm bringing this up because they're real estate developers from all over the world. Many of them are working on the world's largest developments in the desert. I mean, I've got a
Yeah, yeah.
class of about 40 people from all over the world. It's a 1-year program. I teach a little subsection of the program, but it concludes with presentations in front of the class and in front of the faculty and all that. So I work with them over a period of months, helping them refine the story, coming up with the idea, refining their story. More often than not, it's not just academic or theoretical. These are ideas that they're taking into the real world. And it culminates in this big, 2 or 3 day long presentation where everyone gets to present. We keep them to 7 minutes, 7 minutes, because there's a reason behind that as well. A lot of people will tell you, venture capitalists tell me, if an entrepreneur cannot get through their presentation in 7 minutes or so, go back to the drawing board, okay? Because the goal, especially of an initial presentation, is not to tell me everything you know, right? You all know this, everyone who's
Right,
listening.
right.
It's not to tell the person everything they know, it's to get the second meeting. Isn't that interesting? To get the second meeting. Very few people are just going to approve the project or write a check immediately. Get the second meeting. Whet their appetite, okay? Give them just enough to get that next meeting and to have them lean in and get intrigued. But we practice because these students, from what I've learned over doing this for 7 years or so, even at that executive level, they want to work on their presentation till the last minute and their slides and the font on slide number 8. Oh, no, 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 no. I'm going to redo your schedule here. You're going to spend 2 weeks practicing this so that when you get up there in front of the 40 people, you are confident. You can nail it. We can predict what kind of questions you're going to get. So that whole practice piece is something that I've noticed is foreign to them. And these are high-level executives. You can't get into this program unless you've already put in 20 years of experience in real estate development.
Oh,
So they're
wow.
high-level executives, and this is new to them, this whole idea of practicing for a pitch.
So I want to get into some other principles, right?
Sure.
So and I'm going to ask you because you've written books on some of the most incredible speeches of our time, right? Between or speakers, right? Between you
Mhm.
wrote a book on Steve Jobs and
Yeah,
on
yep.
Jeff Bezos.
Still the best storyteller of our time, by the way,
It's
but
incredible, and his I think it's his Stanford keynote speech, right?
Mhm.
Just like absolutely amazing. And I listen to it every once in a while just because it's so inspirational. Like it gets me amped up.
You wanna hear okay, this is a great point. You just reminded me of something. Can I give you a little tidbit on the
Yeah.
Stanford speech? True story. Uh, so Steve Jobs called Aaron Sorkin, the great screenwriter, the
Yes. I
West Wing
love
guy. Okay,
West
I guess
Wing.
I
Great
guess when
show.
you're a billionaire owner of Apple, you can do this. You call Aaron. And he said, "I'm giving this commencement speech. I was wondering if you could help me write it." And Aaron goes, "No, no, this has got to come from the heart. This has got to be you." And that speech became the really in most countries the number one
Yep.
highest rated, highest viewed commencement address of all time. And anyone can look it up on YouTube. You look up Steve Jobs Stanford commencement, and you'll notice that it's just three stories. So again, he's a storyteller, and there are three stories from his life that then end with a broader lesson for everyone else. But as we're talking in real time, I'm figuring this out that AI can't do that, can it? ChatGPT could not write that speech because it doesn't have the lived experience. Eric, thank you. Can we end this podcast? I'm going to go write an article on this.
Hey, if you need to jump, that's
I am
that can go
serious.
down the
I'm going to
line.
write this. I'm going to write an article on it. Yeah, I love it. Thanks for the idea.
No, no problem. Hey, we're here to have a conversation. So I will talking about Steve Jobs and mentioned he tells three stories in there. So I know that's like one of the principles of Talk Like TED, right? You talk
Mhm.
about the power of three. Um
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad you remembered that. Power of three.
yeah, no, I really enjoyed Talk Like TED. It was I because I loved hearing all the different stories and all the different perspectives. And so I want to actually this was my question that I wanted to throw out there because I think it'll be great for the audience. But what was like one of the I think there was 9 total principles. What's one of the principles you either want to share with the audience and is there a particular story from Talk Like TED that you'd want to, just draw attention to right now?
Sure. Absolutely. Yes. There's a whole chapter dedicated to storytelling. Now, at the time that I wrote Talk Like TED, I was thinking about it more in terms of how would you give a TED style presentation? And it was really an excuse for me to speak to some great public speakers. So I got a lot of insight. Storytelling became a big thing because everybody kind of starts with a story or they weave stories. Those seem to be the most viral of the TED Talks, the ones that incorporate story. But it was only one chapter in the book. So if you go onto Amazon, you'll see that my next book was The Storyteller's Secret. That's an entire book just on storytelling in business. And ever since then, I've become obsessed with storytelling because very few people know how to do it well, and yet it applies to each and every one of us. So this whole idea, and now it's more important than ever because as we've talked about with AI, I don't think AI does not have that unique lived experience that you do, that Steve Jobs did. So it's really important to weave in those personal stories that reflect who you are. Can I give you, I'll give you one great example that is not from a TED Talk, but it is something that I've written about recently. And I also included the story in this new audiobook, Viral Voices, that we talked about. Take a look at Jensen Huang, who was the CEO and founder of NVIDIA. Everyone knows NVIDIA now, or they've heard
Yep.
about it. It's a complicated company, but it's the first $5 trillion company, and its technology powers AI. Nothing happens without NVIDIA's chips right now.
Yep.
Um, take a look at some of his interviews. Have you seen some of his interviews? Did you, there was a 60 Minutes piece on him last year. Eric, in real time here, I'm just kind of asking you, have you seen any of the interviews that Jensen Huang has given?
I've seen a couple, but nothing like I could particularly point
Yeah.
to.
Okay, so take a look at public interviews that he's done. And you may remember, even from some of the limited ones that you've seen, you may remember something that he has mentioned. He worked at Denny's, a pancake house.
That's, like, infamous on his LinkedIn page, right? I think he's got that up as his first,
You just taught me something. I did not know that because
I'm pretty sure I
I
saw
haven't,
that on
I
LinkedIn,
bet it is. I bet
yeah.
it is. Yeah, and I haven't seen this. I didn't even think of looking him up on LinkedIn. But yeah, absolutely. That's so funny that you said that. It's kind of core to his story. And so I would
It makes
urge
more sense
anyone.
now that he did that.
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
yeah,
but I
no, go
remember
ahead.
seeing that kinda going viral, like and I didn't remember it was Denny's, but that, like, obviously he had a role at a fast food, like,
Yeah,
whatever you
yeah,
wanna call it.
okay, good,
But
good.
it's
So
core to his story, it makes more sense now as to why he would keep it up, because so many of those people shy away from that part of their life, right? Like, you
you're
don't see it.
you're reinforcing my point because even if you don't remember the name of the restaurant, you kind of remembered it was some sort of fast food place.
Correct,
Okay,
yeah.
right. Yes, that's the point. So in almost every interview, he talks about working at Denny's when he was a teenager. And what did it do? It taught him a lot of values that he carried into starting a company and the way NVIDIA works today. So, for example, nothing was beneath him. He told Stanford business students that he was the best busboy and the best dishwasher he said Denny's ever had. No one washed dishes as well as I had because whatever role you have, you do it to the best of your ability. See, that makes him, Eric, an interesting speaker because he has this really unique experience that he is using to teach us all something about who he is, his values, and also to teach us business lessons. So I would urge everybody go to YouTube and you can see the whole segment. It's search 60 minutes Jensen Huang. So they did like a 12 or 15-minute segment on Jensen, and you'll notice something. Where did he want to meet them? Or the crew of 60 Minutes at the new multi-billion-dollar campus, which is not that far from where I am in Silicon Valley, or at the Denny's where he worked. Isn't that interesting? It was at the Denny's where he worked that the crew had to meet him because it's central to the origin of how it all started. And there's a booth at that Denny's. I did my own little YouTube video from that booth. There's an actual booth. It's got a little plaque on it, and
And it
no
says
one's sitting there, Eric. That's what got me. Nobody's sitting there. It's just like this little booth with a plaque. And I'm looking around at all these people thinking, this is the secret to like a startup. This is the secret to innovation. The secret to success is right in that booth. You should go in that booth, sit
yeah,
there, brainstorm, write. That's what I did. And it was that very booth where he and two co-founders got together and came up with the idea for what became NVIDIA. Great
that's
story. Great
incredible
story.
story.
Yep. And no one else can tell that story. You think ChatGPT can come up with that? Nobody else has that story.
The storytelling piece of Talk Like TED was what I took away the most. I love that, like, it's authentic, it's real, it's who you are, and I think to your point, it's what sets you apart, right? Your story is unique to you. There's no one else that lived your same shared you keep saying that, like, no one else has your same
Yep.
shared experiences. No one's lived your life, and being true to that is so important.
I wrote a book called The Presentation Secrets of Steve Jobs. Look,
I wanted to get into that, yeah.
we can get into that and we'll get into it now. And I'll tell you right now that looking back, that was the wrong title. I should, knowing what I know now, I would have said The Storytelling Secrets of Steve Jobs because I looked at it through the lens, like most people do. We look at everything through a lens of like, I'm giving a presentation. And what I've learned since that book came out was that Steve Jobs was a storyteller first. And I've learned that firsthand. They've even used people who knew him use the word storyteller.
Yep.
He was a storyteller first. The slides were beautifully created, but to complement the story.
Well, Pixar has some incredible stories too.
And notice how Steve Jobs was a
Yep.
big fan of Pixar and wanted to own Pixar because he understood the power of stories.
So, no, I think the storytelling is a and the unique how to set yourself apart, I think is my big takeaway from this is that the storytelling is what sets you apart, right? Your
Yeah,
story is what sets you apart. Trying to weave that in. Um, I'm gonna I have one more question before we jump into our lightning round.
sure.
And that question is it's kind of open-ended, but I love it as just like if you were able to share with yourself, your younger self, either a quote or a mantra that you subscribe to, or just some advice, what would it be?
I'll bring up a mantra or a quote that I've heard recently in the last couple of years because I've been so immersed in this new research on communication. And I think that these are like 8 words that if you just take them to heart, they will completely change you as a speaker and a communicator in everything you do. And as a writer, a famed neuroscientist who has spent 4 decades, 40 years studying the brain, told me this. He said, Carmine, if there's only one thing you remember from our conversation, it's this. The brain doesn't pay attention to boring things. And so I open my new audio book, Viral Voices. I open it with that. The brain doesn't pay attention to boring things. And if that's all you get out of it and you stop listening there, you'll be a much better speaker. Your PowerPoints will be shorter. Your stories will be more interesting and more engaging. Your emails will be shorter and more convincing. You'll stick to 3 points or 3 features of a product or 3 reasons someone should back your idea and not 18. Because if you understand how the brain has evolved and how your brain works, you're in a much better position to create communication that is not boring. But first, you have to understand what is boring to the brain. And that's why this whole idea of the history, learn psychology. I probably would have told my younger self, frankly, Eric, learn more psychology because it's psychology that drives everything we do. Oh, okay. So when you talk to these cognitive psychologists like I have, a neuroscientist, you realize that everything we do, the decisions we make are all driven by biases, by what they call heuristics, by cognitive shortcuts and all that stuff. The better you know your own brain and how it works, the more successful you'll be. I apply to communication, but I think it applies to all of the decisions we make. I would major in psychology. Maybe that's what I would have told myself. Major in psychology, figure that out first, and the rest will take care of itself.
Figure itself out. Well, you know what? And you just mentioned that's how you open up your viral voices. But tell us about that. I know the audio originals is like eh, I've seen more and more of it.
Yeah.
Commercials for it, ads for it. Like I said, I listen to a ton of audiobooks, so it happens to always like weave its way into something like that. Tell us about it. What is Viral Voices and how are you working with the program? Like how is that project working for you?
Well, you know me. I enjoy trying new things, experimenting, and being open to new platforms. So Macmillan Publishers, Macmillan Audio, which is a giant audiobook publisher based in New York, published some of my audiobooks. Traditionally, an audiobook, just to make it clear for your listeners, traditionally an audiobook is just the book read by someone else or by the author. Most business books are kind of read by the author, but that's about it. Maybe with some musical breaks in between the chapters, but that's about it.
No, it's dry.
Yeah, yeah, it can be dry if they're not a good speaker. And then there's podcasting, like what we're doing here, which is ongoing, guests, different topics, and all that. Well, there's this in between category that's growing quite quickly, and it's called audio originals. So an audio original is still an audio type of book that you would get wherever you get your audiobooks. But they are limited edition, limited series, 10 or 12 episodes on a particular topic. So this one happens to be on persuasion in the digital age. I call it, from TikTok to TED Talks. And so it took a long time to put together because I co-produced it with some folks at Macmillan. I had to write it, but I also chose really good, deliberate guests some of whom were really hard to get on, but we had great conversations. I have everyone from billionaires like Richard Branson and the guy who co-created Square,
Oh, wow.
to neuroscientists, and to social media influencers who are using some of the same tactics that you and I have been talking about, really, to create viral content. In fact, the way they look at storytelling is not unlike what I've learned from neuroscientists in the past. So my whole thing is none of this. My big theme that I've concluded over the last couple of years is that the tools of communication have changed. Of course, now we have AI, TikTok, short form videos, before then PowerPoint. The tools of communication have changed, but the human brain has not. Understand how the brain works, how your listener processes information, and you'll be able to adapt your content and your story for any medium.
I love that. So is it out already or it's coming out?
Yeah, it's out. By the time this podcast is published, it'll be available for
Very cool.
yeah, they say for sale, but it's also available on those premium. Like I have Spotify Premium, which includes audio originals and audiobooks. So wherever you get your audiobook.
Yeah, what we'll do is, we'll include links to that and your other books in when we post the episode, so that'll
Yeah,
be great.
please do. Thanks.
I'm gonna jump us to our lightning round because we're gonna have to sign off in a couple minutes here.
Okay.
So lightning round is fast fire questions, more fun than anything. Don't get too hung up on any of them.
All right.
But first, and because you mentioned Winston Churchill earlier, but do you have like a favorite orator? Like, who is someone that you just hear them talk and you're like, that is the most inspirational person to just listen to, right? It almost doesn't matter what they're talking about.
Okay, I'll give you historical and I'll give you contemporary.
Sure.
If you're into TED Talks, if any of you have listened to the TED Talks, go to TED.com and look up Brian Stevenson.
Okay.
Brian Stevenson is a human rights attorney. And I talked to him after he gave his now famous TED Talk. There was actually a movie based on him that was made with Michael B. Jordan and
Oh,
Jamie
I've seen the movie.
Foxx.
Yeah.
Yeah, Just Mercy. That's
Right.
about this
Yeah.
guy. He is an extraordinary communicator and a very deliberate communicator who taught me a lot, and a lot of that is in Talk Like Ted. But he is so casual and so conversational and yet so deep. Yeah, it's like, okay. But he's worked at it. He's worked at it. Another contemporary communicator and speaker who I absolutely love because he takes science and makes it understandable is Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yep. Very good. Yeah.
Follow his social media, and he takes really complicated stuff and makes it simple and easy to understand. Historically, Winston Churchill's speeches are really hard to beat because
Yeah.
he was he was a poet at heart and a writer. And he was writing things in his speeches that we now know today. We know why they worked. Speaking of the rule of thirds, he would always break things up into, thirds. Never before in human history have so many been affected by so few, in so short amount of time or something like that. So it's like threes, they were called triads. So he would build things in threes. So he understood the power of persuasion, the power of words really, really deeply. And so there's a lot of stuff just written about him and the way he wrote.
Very cool. Love that. And later today, I know I'm gonna find myself like looking at some of these speeches because I love just listening. I know we talked a little bit about doom scrolling. So what's your alternative? What are you doing instead of doom scrolling now?
Oh my gosh, I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing. I read a lot of books. I read a lot of history books, but over the last, let's say, 5 years, I've really gotten into what I call progress books. That's my own name for them. I'm
Sure.
not sure what other category they would be, but they are the kind of books that reinforce the fact by data that we are living in one of the greatest time in human civilization. That's not my opinion. That's Warren Buffett has been saying that for years. So the point is getting back to how we started, gratitude. It's good to read books that kind of show you where we've come and how far we've come. Steven Pinker, Enlightenment Now. I've got Deidre McCloskey. If you don't mind me bending over, let me get this. Look at this baby. Look at that
Oh,
baby.
wow.
This is like 800 pages. I'm like, Deidre, that's a lot, but it's 800 pages of progress from about 1860 on. It's a hockey stick of progress, which is why if you have a great idea, ideas build on each other and then expand exponentially. And that's why we have a lot of problems. Yes, but we also have more solutions and more ideas than ever before. So I think you have to deliberately look for progress and positive information out there because it's not just going to be pushed to you on your feeds. That's not how the algorithms work.
Yep.
So it's really important to understand all that stuff. I'll take you to a website too that's become my favorite called Human Progress. Once a week, they send me an email about all of the amazing things that went under the radar that I may have missed this week. Puts you in a good mood.
I love that. Yeah, that's really great. And I've seen, I don't even know if it's that website, but there was all the like what you could almost say like anti-news, right? Like the good things that happened in the world this week. Because when you turn on the news,
Yeah.
it's typically only bad stuff, like
Humanprogress.org or .com, but Human Progress is could be coming from there. And they're great. It's not just, oh, a firefighter rescued a cat from a tree, like
right,
at
right.
the end of a newscast. No, they're like, look at what we've done in terms of cancer research that has never been done ever in human history. Yeah. And you have to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling in every email to get through all of the things that you didn't know were happening right under your nose. Everything from healthcare to the environment to a lot of things that you thought were going in the wrong direction, but gee, maybe not. You got to reframe your thinking because the algorithms, I've studied this and I've talked to the people who work for the social media sites. They are there to keep you in a state of turmoil. So you have to be deliberate about reaching for the positive. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I'm glad we started with good news and gratitudes. We ended with it, so I love that. I will, Carmine. Thank you so much. What a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to catching up on some of these topics, even after this. Um, but for now, that's all the time we have for today. We're going to include links, like I mentioned earlier, to many of Carmine's books, to the viral voices, and to any other like resources that may be relevant
Yeah.
in the show notes.
Please keep in touch with me. Please keep in touch with me. Anybody who's listening, look me up on LinkedIn, Carmine Gallo. It's an easy to remember Italian name, I think. Yeah, I'd love to have conversations. Tell me that you heard it on Building Better Futures.
That'd be amazing, and we'll include a link to your LinkedIn as well. Then we could do
Excellent.
that.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, everybody. Keep an eye out for the next episode.
Thank you.